From the beginning of human history, intimacy has fascinated us, not just for the pleasure it delivers, but also for the profound transformations it triggers inside the body. When two people engage in sexual intercourse, what appears from the outside to be a simple act of connection is, in truth, an extraordinary symphony of biological reactions. Beneath the skin, muscles contract in coordinated patterns, blood vessels widen or constrict, glands release potent chemicals, and the nervous system orchestrates signals that reshape the way the mind and body feel in those moments. Sex is not only about reproduction or pleasure. It is a complex interplay of physiology, psychology, and chemistry that affects nearly every system within us. To understand what truly happens to human beings during and after intercourse, we need to trace the journey from arousal to climax, and then into the recovery phase that follows. For men, the pathway begins with arousal. Visual stimulation, physical touch, and even imagination can set into motion a cascade of biological responses. At the center of this process lies the brain. The hypothalamus, that tiny control tower deep within the skull, activates nerve signals that ripple down the spinal cord. These signals stimulate the release of nitric oxide within the blood vessels of the penis. Nitric oxide, in turn, allows smooth muscle to relax, making it easier for arteries to widen. Blood rushes in, filling the spongy erectile tissue known as the corpora cavernosa. Veins that usually drain blood away from the area become compressed, trapping the flow inside. This dual process of increased inflow and restricted outflow produces an erection. What might appear to be a straightforward mechanical result is actually the culmination of a finely balanced dance between the nervous system and vascular system. As stimulation continues, the man's heart rate accelerates. Breathing deepens, skin temperature increases, and perspiration may appear. Hormones surge, most notably dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, which intensifies anticipation and heightens focus on the sexual experience. Testosterone, already circulating, sharpens desire and helps maintain arousal. At this point, muscles throughout the body, especially those in the pelvic floor, begin preparing for what is known as the emission and ejaculation stages. Eventually, the body approaches what physiologists call the point of no return. At this threshold, a reflex arc in the spinal cord takes over, ensuring that the process moves forward whether or not conscious control is applied. The prostate gland, seminal vesicles, and vas deferens contract in rhythmic fashion, pushing seminal fluid toward the urethra. The internal sphincter of the bladder closes tightly to prevent urine from mixing with semen. With powerful contractions of the bulbospongiosus muscle, semen is expelled in successive bursts. Each spasm is accompanied by waves of pleasure, often felt throughout the pelvis and radiating into the rest of the body. This is the male orgasm, a brief yet potent climax that involves not only muscular activity, but also an enormous neurological discharge. After ejaculation, the male body quickly enters what scientists refer to as the resolution phase. The parasympathetic nervous system regains dominance, slowing the heart, lowering blood pressure, and directing the penis back to a flaccid state as trapped blood gradually drains out. Many men experience an immediate decline in arousal, and the brain releases neurochemicals that create a sense of profound relief and relaxation. Among these, serotonin, oxytocin, and prolactin play particularly important roles. Prolactin, in particular, has been strongly linked to the feeling of satiation and the tendency to become drowsy after sex. This is one reason why men often fall asleep quickly after orgasm. Far from being laziness or disregard for a partner, this inclination is tied directly to neurobiology. The refractory period is another distinctive element of the male sexual response. During this interval, the body is unable to produce another erection or orgasm, regardless of desire. The length of the refractory period varies dramatically. Younger males may recover in minutes, while older individuals may need hours or even longer. Fitness level, hormonal balance, psychological state, and even the depth of emotional connection can influence how long this phase lasts. Alongside relaxation and sleepiness, other physical effects may appear. Some men notice soreness in the genitals due to repeated muscular contractions. Testicular retraction during orgasm, caused by the cremaster muscle pulling the testes closer to the body, can make them appear smaller temporarily. Others may feel a tingling or even mild cramping in the toes or legs, a byproduct of nerve stimulation traveling down the spinal column. Occasionally, men report a shift in mood, sometimes euphoric, sometimes melancholic. This can be traced to the dramatic fluctuations of neurotransmitters. Dopamine surges before and during orgasm, creating exhilaration. But as levels crash afterward, a brief emotional dip may follow, similar to the come-down experienced after certain drugs. While these biological truths apply broadly, women's experiences follow both parallel and distinct patterns. Female arousal also begins in the brain, with the hypothalamus and limbic system sparking activity that spreads throughout the nervous system. Blood flow increases not to the penis, but to the clitoris, labia, and vaginal walls. Swelling occurs as tissues engorge, and lubrication is secreted by glands near the vaginal entrance. Breasts may enlarge slightly as circulation intensifies, nipples harden, and skin may flush. Heartbeat quickens, breathing becomes deeper, and sensitivity to touch heightens. As stimulation builds, women's bodies prepare for orgasm. The clitoris, containing thousands of nerve endings, is the primary center of pleasure, though the vagina and surrounding structures also contribute. At the peak, the pelvic muscles contract rapidly and rhythmically. Unlike men, whose orgasm is linked directly to ejaculation, women's climaxes can vary greatly in duration and intensity. Some women experience a single wave of contractions, while others undergo a sequence of surges that roll through their bodies one after another. Because women generally lack a strict refractory period, many can experience multiple orgasms if stimulation continues. Female ejaculation, often misunderstood, sometimes occurs. When it does, it may involve the release of a small, milky fluid or a larger volume of liquid that more closely resembles diluted urine mixed with secretions from the paraurethral glands, sometimes called the female prostate. Scientists still debate the precise mechanisms, but most agree it is harmless and natural. After orgasm, women, like men, receive a flood of chemicals in the brain. Oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, plays an especially significant role. This substance fosters feelings of connection, tenderness, and trust. It is the same hormone released during childbirth and breastfeeding to strengthen bonds between mother and child. For this reason, women may feel a strong desire to cuddle, talk, or simply remain close after sex. Men release oxytocin as well, but higher testosterone levels can diminish its effects, which partly explains differences in post-coital behavior between the sexes. Despite these common patterns, not every woman experiences orgasm during intercourse. Studies suggest a wide range. Some climax consistently, others only occasionally, and some rarely, if ever. Yet, even without orgasm, the act of sex produces significant physiological effects. Elevated heart rate, muscle contractions, hormonal release, and enhanced circulation. The psychological benefits, including intimacy, stress reduction, and mood improvement, can still be profound. Women may also notice changes in their bodies after sex. Breasts having swelled during arousal may remain enlarged briefly. Nipples often remain sensitive for a time. Some women feel uterine contractions, a result of oxytocin's dual role in pleasure and muscle activity. Vaginal tissues may become temporarily irritated if lubrication was insufficient. In rare cases, mild cramping may occur. These effects generally fade quickly, but they are reminders that sex is not just a mental event, but a full-body experience. What makes female responses even more intriguing is the return of cognitive functions after orgasm. During arousal, regions of the brain that regulate fear and anxiety, such as the amygdala, tend to deactivate, allowing complete focus on the physical experience. Once the climax ends, those areas switch back on, which can prompt renewed awareness, emotional reflection, or conversation. This neurological shift helps explain why women, more often than men, may wish to talk or reconnect immediately after sex. Taken together, the post-sexual period reveals stark contrasts. Men often enter a biologically driven state of fatigue and reduced arousal, while women frequently emerge with renewed sociability, sensitivity, and receptiveness to further stimulation. Yet both sexes undergo an extraordinary outpouring of hormones and neurotransmitters that leave them calmer, less anxious, and often closer to their partner. The aftermath of sex is therefore not simply about rest or withdrawal. It is about balance. Orgasm reduces cortisol, the stress hormone, thereby easing tension. It elevates endorphins, natural painkillers that enhance well-being. It stabilizes mood by increasing serotonin, and it fosters social bonding through oxytocin. These biological outcomes may even contribute to long-term health benefits, including improved cardiovascular function, strengthened immune responses, and reduced risk of depression. What at first might appear to be a fleeting act of passion is, in truth, one of the body's most remarkable physiological events. In a matter of minutes, the body cycles from heightened excitement to explosive release to peaceful restoration. It involves nearly every organ system, from brain to skin, from glands to muscles. The human sexual response is an orchestra, each instrument tuned to a precise note, and when the music concludes, the echoes resonate far beyond the bedroom. To fully appreciate what sex does to the body, we must look beyond the visible signs of arousal or the physical mechanics of orgasm. Hidden within the skull, billions of neurons fire in carefully coordinated sequences. Sexual activity is, in essence, a neurological storm. It begins with desire, but desire itself is not a simple concept. It is shaped by hormones, personal history, cultural conditioning, and situational context. The brain is both the ignition and the command center. When arousal begins, the limbic system, the brain's emotional hub, lights up. Structures like the amygdala, hypothalamus, and nucleus accumbens exchange electrical pulses at high speed. These regions integrate signals from the senses, what we see, hear, smell, touch, and even imagine. As this neural chatter intensifies, dopamine release surges. Dopamine is often simplified as the pleasure chemical, but it is more accurately the neurotransmitter of motivation and reward anticipation. During sexual activity, dopamine does not merely make us feel good. It heightens focus, narrows attention, and primes the body to pursue climax. This explains why, in moments of arousal, distractions fade into the background. Hunger, thirst, or minor discomforts are suppressed. The body channels its energy toward the single act of intimacy. Alongside dopamine, adrenaline, and norepinephrine amplify excitement. These chemicals accelerate heart rate, increase blood pressure, and sharpen senses. A slight tremor in the hands, flushed skin, dilated pupils. All of these are reflections of the sympathetic nervous system at work. This is the body's activation switch, similar to what happens during intense exercise or danger. But in this context, it is linked to pleasure rather than fear. During intercourse, the cerebral cortex, the outer layer responsible for rational thought, often becomes less dominant. Many brain imaging studies show decreased activity in the prefrontal cortex, which governs logic, planning, and self-consciousness. This partial quieting allows people to lose themselves in the experience, to surrender analytical thought and immerse in sensation. It is why time can feel distorted, why moments stretch or collapse, why climax can feel both fleeting and eternal. Then comes orgasm, the crescendo of the neurological symphony. During orgasm, almost every region of the brain shows heightened activity. The cerebellum, usually tasked with motor coordination, fires intensely. The reward centers, particularly the ventral tegmental area and nucleus accumbens, light up in waves. Simultaneously, the amygdala, the fear center, shuts down, silencing anxiety and leaving a state of profound release. This neurological pattern resembles, in some ways, the brain scans of individuals under the influence of certain psychoactive drugs. In fact, the intensity of dopamine release during climax has been compared to bursts triggered by stimulants, only achieved naturally by the body. In both men and women, orgasm releases a cocktail of chemicals: oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, vasopressin, and prolactin. Each contributes to the aftermath in unique ways. Oxytocin enhances bonding, trust, and closeness. It is why even casual encounters can leave lingering feelings of attachment. Serotonin stabilizes mood, promoting calm and contentment. Endorphins act like morphine produced internally, dulling pain and spreading warmth. Vasopressin, particularly in men, is linked to protective instincts and partner loyalty. Prolactin reduces sexual desire temporarily, helping explain the refractory period in males. But chemicals do not operate in isolation. They interact in dynamic feedback loops. High oxytocin can soften the edges of stress. Elevated serotonin balances dopamine surges, preventing overstimulation. A sudden drop in dopamine, however, can produce post-orgasmic mood swings, sometimes called the post-coital blues. This emotional dip can affect men more strongly, though women are not immune. Researchers believe it is the neurological equivalent of a come-down after a euphoric high. Post-sex behavior. Whether someone wants to cuddle, talk, sleep, or get up immediately, is not purely personality-driven. It reflects these underlying chemical states. For example, a person flooded with oxytocin may crave physical closeness, while one dominated by prolactin may crave solitude and rest. This explains why mismatches often occur between partners. One wants intimacy through conversation or touch, while the other turns inward, surrendering to sleep. The body's physical state after orgasm mirrors the chemical cascade. In men, the penis softens as blood drains, scrotal muscles relax, and testicles descend. In women, the clitoris, having engorged with blood, retreats and becomes hypersensitive. often requiring a pause before further stimulation. Vaginal tissues, stretched and lubricated, begin to return to baseline, though sensitivity may linger. Breasts, swollen during arousal, gradually deflate to their usual size. Skin flush fades as circulation normalizes. The entire body transitions from sympathetic dominance, arousal, and activation back into parasympathetic dominance, rest and recovery. Yet, unlike exercise where the body simply cools down, sex leaves a more profound imprint. Studies have shown that sexual activity can strengthen the immune system, reducing susceptibility to infections. Heart health may benefit as well, since the cardiovascular workout of arousal and orgasm mimics aerobic activity. Stress markers like cortisol drop, lowering overall anxiety. Sleep quality often improves, not merely because of exhaustion, but due to the neurochemical cocktail of oxytocin and prolactin promoting deeper rest. Differences between men and women in recovery extend beyond sleepiness versus talkativeness. For men, the refractory period is a biological wall. It is the body's way of resetting the neurochemical balance and ensuring sperm conservation. For women who do not face this same obstacle, the potential for multiple orgasms emerges. A woman may ride one climax into another if stimulation continues, sometimes experiencing chains of contractions that build in intensity. This capacity highlights how evolutionary pressures shape the sexes differently. Men maximize chances of reproduction through ejaculation, while women potentially maximize bonding, intimacy, and mate selection through extended capacity for pleasure. But not all sexual encounters lead to orgasm, particularly for women. Many factors influence this outcome: psychological state, trust, comfort, adequate stimulation, hormonal balance, and physical health. Even in the absence of orgasm, however, the physiological benefits of arousal, improved circulation, stress reduction, hormone release, still occur. It is not an all-or-nothing event. The journey itself has biological value. Now consider the emotional and psychological aftermath. For many, sex is followed by a heightened sense of closeness and security. This is partly oxytocin at work, but it is also the brain interpreting the entire experience as one of shared vulnerability. Physical intimacy strips away social masks. Two people share not only their bodies, but also a form of unguarded honesty. This psychological nakedness, when paired with oxytocin's chemical reinforcement, forges deeper bonds. At the same time, some individuals report the opposite: feelings of emptiness, guilt, or sadness after sex. Known as post-coital dysphoria, this phenomenon has been documented in both men and women. Scientists believe it may stem from abrupt chemical fluctuations combined with unresolved emotional undercurrents. For example, dopamine's sudden crash may amplify pre-existing insecurities. Prolactin's satisfaction signal may be misinterpreted as emotional detachment. Social conditioning, personal expectations, or cultural stigma can also shape post-sex reactions. What is clear is that the emotional aftermath of sex is as varied as the act itself. It is also important to recognize that not every bodily reaction is pleasurable. Some men experience delayed discomfort in the testicles due to vascular changes. Some women report cramping in the uterus, an effect of oxytocin's muscle contracting action. Vaginal dryness, if present, can lead to stinging or irritation afterward. Minor cramps in the legs, feet, or abdomen are also common, a byproduct of nerve stimulation radiating beyond the pelvis. These effects, though temporary, underscore that sex is a full-body exercise, not confined to reproductive organs alone. From a broader biological perspective, sex represents one of the most energy-intensive activities humans engage in voluntarily. Calories are burned, heart rates elevate, muscles tense and release in cycles. But unlike running or lifting weights, sex blends physical strain with profound chemical release. The brain interprets this blend as uniquely rewarding, reinforcing the behavior so that it is repeated across time. From an evolutionary standpoint, this reinforcement ensures the continuation of the species. Pleasure is nature's incentive program for reproduction. Another fascinating layer is the variability among individuals. No two people experience the sexual cycle in precisely the same way. Age alters responses. Young adults often have shorter refractory periods and more intense orgasms, while older adults may experience slower buildup and weaker contractions. Health plays a role. Cardiovascular fitness enhances circulation, while stress and fatigue dampen desire. Hormonal differences influence libido and recovery speed. Psychological state, confidence, anxiety, trust may be the most powerful factor of all, since the brain is the ultimate governor of arousal. Furthermore, the social context in which sex occurs can reshape bodily responses. A trusted partner may amplify oxytocin release, deepening post-coital bonding. A casual encounter might trigger more dopamine-driven excitement, but less emotional afterglow. Cultural expectations can also affect self-perception, influencing whether individuals interpret their bodily reactions positively or negatively. Despite these variables, one truth remains consistent. Sex leaves an indelible mark on the body and mind in the moments after it ends. Whether the result is exhaustion, contentment, renewed closeness, or even temporary sadness, the act sets into motion processes that ripple far beyond the bedroom. These processes shape relationships, influence mental health, and even alter long-term physiology. To think of sex merely as a physical act is to miss its depth. It is a neurochemical ballet, a psychological mirror, a biological reset button, and an evolutionary drive all rolled into one. The post-coital body is not simply resting. It is recalibrating, healing, bonding, and sometimes questioning. This is why sex has always been more than reproduction. It is a force that touches every dimension of human existence. Sex, as we have seen, is not a simple event, but a complex physiological performance. Yet for centuries, it has been surrounded by myths, misunderstandings, and cultural interpretations that often distort what truly happens inside the body. To appreciate sex in its full biological richness, it is useful to separate myth from science and to explore how culture and physiology intertwine to create our perceptions of intimacy. One of the most persistent misconceptions is that men and women experience sexual desire and satisfaction in entirely different ways, as though they were creatures from separate planets. While it is true that anatomy creates certain distinctions, such as the male refractory period or the female potential for multiple orgasms, the core neurochemistry of arousal, climax, and recovery is strikingly similar. Both sexes release dopamine during arousal. Both experience adrenaline-driven acceleration of the heart and lungs. Both surge with oxytocin during orgasm. Both calm under the influence of prolactin afterward. The fundamental human blueprint is shared. The differences are variations in degree, not absolute separations. Another misconception is that sleepiness in men after sex is a sign of indifference. Popular culture often depicts the man who rolls over and snores as selfish or inattentive. But science shows this tendency is rooted in neurobiology, not disrespect. The brain's release of prolactin and oxytocin induces drowsiness, much like a sedative. At the same time, a sharp drop in dopamine deactivates the high-energy pursuit state. The result is an irresistible pull toward rest. Far from being a choice, it is a programmed outcome of male physiology. Similarly, women's inclination toward conversation or closeness after sex is sometimes misinterpreted as emotional neediness. Yet this too is biological. Elevated oxytocin and a reawakened prefrontal cortex prime women to seek social connection. What one partner interprets as talkativeness is, at its core, the body's way of strengthening bonds. Far from being weakness, it is evidence of the evolutionary role of sex, not only in reproduction, but also in social cohesion. The myth that orgasm is always necessary for satisfaction is another distortion. While orgasm certainly amplifies pleasure and delivers dramatic chemical release, arousal itself carries benefits. Lowered stress, increased circulation, enhanced mood, and intimacy. Many individuals find fulfillment in sexual activity even without climax. And science confirms that the journey is biologically significant even if the destination is not reached. Cultural beliefs also shape interpretations of physical responses. In some societies, female ejaculation is celebrated. In others, it is stigmatized or denied as real. Science shows that fluid release during female climax is natural, though its composition and triggers vary. Dismissing it as abnormal or shameful ignores biology. Likewise, testicular retraction in men or breast swelling in women are sometimes misunderstood as signs of illness, when in fact they are temporary and healthy effects of arousal. Beyond misconceptions, there are also exaggerations. Popular claims that sex burns hundreds of calories, equivalent to running miles, are overstatements. While sex does elevate heart rate and expend energy, most encounters burn between 70 and 150 calories. Comparable to a brisk walk, the true health benefits of sex lie not in calorie expenditure, but in hormonal regulation, immune strengthening, and psychological well-being. These health implications deserve closer attention. Regular sexual activity has been linked to reduced blood pressure, improved cardiovascular function, and lower risks of certain illnesses. The relaxation that follows orgasm reduces cortisol, which in turn lowers inflammation and supports immune defenses. Some studies suggest sexually active individuals catch fewer colds and recover faster from illness. Endorphins released during sex act as natural analgesics, easing pain from headaches or menstrual cramps. Sleep quality improves for many, not just from exertion, but from the chemical lullabies of oxytocin and prolactin. Sex also supports mental health. The dopamine highs followed by serotonin stabilization can relieve anxiety, counter depression, and boost self-esteem. The bond-enhancing power of oxytocin reinforces trust and security in relationships, which themselves protect against stress. For individuals in long-term partnerships, regular intimacy has been correlated with greater happiness and resilience against life's pressures. The reproductive system also benefits. In men, frequent ejaculation may help reduce the risk of prostate complications. In women, regular arousal increases blood flow to the pelvic region, enhancing tissue health and maintaining elasticity. Uterine contractions during orgasm may even help clear menstrual debris or bacteria, reducing risks of infection. Though more research is needed, these findings highlight sex not only as pleasure, but also as maintenance for reproductive health. It is worth noting, however, that the absence of sex does not doom a person to poor health. Many of the same benefits can be achieved through other forms of exercise, meditation, or close social bonds. What makes sex unique is its simultaneous stimulation of multiple systems, physical, hormonal, emotional, within a single activity. Few other experiences blend such a range of effects into one. Another fascinating aspect is the diversity of post-sex emotional states. For some, sex leaves them empowered, more confident, and more connected to their bodies. For others, particularly when the encounter lacks emotional intimacy, it may evoke emptiness or regret. Scientists attribute these divergent experiences to the interplay of neurochemistry and personal psychology. Oxytocin, while usually bonding, can magnify feelings of vulnerability if trust is absent. Dopamine's crash may amplify insecurities. Cultural scripts about what sex should mean often color personal interpretations. This explains why the same biological act can feel like transcendence to one person and alienation to another. Sex also affects identity and perception. Many women report feeling more attractive after intercourse, a reflection of endorphins and body confidence surges. Men sometimes describe a temporary dip in emotional openness, not because intimacy was lacking, but because dopamine depletion reduces motivation to engage further. Understanding these patterns can ease relational misunderstandings. What one partner interprets as rejection may be biology's recalibration at work. The temporal nature of these effects is important. Neurochemical highs fade, bodies return to baseline, emotions stabilize. Yet repeated cycles of arousal, orgasm, and resolution leave lasting marks. Regular sex can train the brain's reward circuits, making bonds stronger, reducing anxiety responses, and creating positive associations with partners. Over time, couples who maintain active sexual lives often report deeper trust and satisfaction, not solely because of love, but because their bodies literally rewire themselves toward connection. Cultural attitudes toward sex aftercare also vary. In some traditions, post-coital cuddling is celebrated as sacred bonding. In others, immediate separation is normalized. Modern research shows that small gestures after sex, touching, holding, speaking softly, reinforce oxytocin's effects and prolong intimacy. While biology sets the stage, culture and choice choreograph the dance. Of course, sex does not always proceed smoothly. Conditions like erectile dysfunction, anorgasmia, or vaginismus remind us that the sexual response cycle is fragile, easily disrupted by stress, hormones, medications, or psychological burdens. Post-sex discomfort, such as burning or cramping, can signal insufficient lubrication or other medical concerns. The science of what happens after sex is not only about pleasure, but also about recognizing when something deviates from the expected pattern and requires care. When viewed through the widest lens, sex is both a private act and a public phenomenon. Privately, it floods individuals with chemicals, reshapes their bodies for minutes or hours, and leaves behind echoes of satisfaction or reflection. Publicly, it has shaped art, culture, and history precisely because of its transformative power. Entire mythologies celebrate its energy, entire religions attempt to regulate it. And at the foundation of it all is the simple truth. After sex, human beings are never exactly the same as before. The scientific story of sex and its aftermath is therefore a story of cycles. Arousal primes the body, orgasm ignites the nervous system, resolution calms the storm. The cycle leaves benefits in its wake: lower stress, greater intimacy, sharper health, deeper rest. But like any cycle, it has variations, interruptions, and unexpected turns. For some, the cycle is brief and light. For others, it is profound and even overwhelming. But for all, it is a reminder that sex is one of nature's most intricate designs. To conclude, what happens during and after sex is a miracle of coordination. The brain releases a storm of chemicals. The body responds with muscle contractions and vascular changes, and the aftermath reshapes emotions and health. For men, climax brings a refractory period, rest, and sometimes sleep. For women, climax may bring multiple waves, conversation, and closeness. For both, intimacy leaves an imprint of oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins that ripple through the hours that follow. The myths of selfish sleepers or needy talkers fall away under scientific light. What remains is a shared human truth. Sex is a recalibration of the body and mind. It elevates us, exhausts us, bonds us, heals us, and occasionally challenges us. When the storm of passion passes, what lingers is not only satisfaction, but also the evidence that our bodies are wired for connection. In the quiet afterglow, when the heart slows and the breath steadies, when muscles relax and skin cools, when words are spoken softly or silence prevails, the human body is performing one of its most remarkable feats, restoring itself after a surge of life's most powerful force. This is what truly happens to us during and after sex. A fusion of biology and experience, leaving behind more than memory, leaving behind transformation.